This is Tyrese Halliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
Happy Friday, Pacer Nation. What is going on? Welcome back to your go-to Pacers podcast. I'm Alex Gold, and I'm joined by the man who is living the good life in the HD, Michael J. Facci. Facci, new job going on this week. How's it been, man?
Pretty good. Busy stuff though. I did miss one episode, Set the Pace. Always hurts. Always hurts. But hey, life's changing. I got to be able to roll with it. Got to get everything, under my belt, and then I'll be good to go. So hey, it's been a busy week, but it's been good stuff.
I gotta ask you. You got to go into the office like one day a week now instead of staying from home every single day. What's your go-to meal when you're on the road?
So I bring lunch.
Okay, what do you bring?
Not to say that I keep it cheap, but I like to bring my own food, cook it, bring it. I'm a healthy eater, so I had like turkey meatballs today with a bunch of vegetables. So it's like, there's like some corn in there, some peas, some carrots, things like that. Keep it light. Got some protein bites. They would make them at home. It's like little protein balls. So, it's good. It's good.
I like it, man. Well, we're going to talk about some NBA players today, and that's your Indiana Pacers. And me and Facci have not done this exercise in quite a while, but we felt like today was a good time. I know there's been Summer League games going on. We're not going to talk about Summer League games at this point. Maybe we'll come back and talk about them a little bit more, but at this point, I feel like it's kind of cooled off a little bit in terms of the temperature, in terms of how many people are actually invested in that. But we wanted to talk about this Pacers team and rank them from 1 to 14 based on trade value and their trade value to the Pacers and to the rest of the league. So this is going to be an interesting thing. Me and Facci have our own list, and we're going to go back and forth and kind of see where we align and where we don't align. So you want to kick things off and tell me who you have at number 14 as we work our way up to the player with the most trade value on this team?
Absolutely. And before we get into that, we got to remember a consolidation trade at some point has to happen. It is bound to happen. So feels like at least a relevant topic in terms of their trade value. But I'm going to kick us off at number 14 on the list. It's Kendall Brown. Look,
Okay.
the most valuable thing about his contract is it's non-guaranteed. I think at that point, that's just how we got to put it. It's not a lot of money, but at the same point, I don't think there's going to be anyone calling for Kendall Brown, but maybe if a team just had a contract that was the same value but was guaranteed, they could get that contract off, get Kendall Brown, waive him. That's the only real scenario I could see.
The guy's not even starting in Summer League, okay? He's on the 15-man roster. They have an open roster spot still. They could have two if they decide to let him go and give somebody else that spot. I think he's one of those guys that probably knows he's not going to get much playing time here, so could see his agent maybe saying, maybe we can latch on somewhere else. But I just don't see it with Kendall Brown as ever being more than just an end of the bench kind of guy, especially with this Pacers team. So I as well had him at 14. Now let's move over to number 13. This is where things can really get interesting because I don't know if we're going to have the same for 13, but curious your thoughts.
Look, this is where things could get a little bit different. I'm going with James Wiseman.
Okay.
Still only 23 years old, has not proved much. You can make an argument his value is at rock bottom. This was the very much let me get my value up by going to a team that can has a proven track record of developing players. But for right now, I don't think that there's teams that are going to want to trade really anything for James Wiseman. But I do think that he's still young enough. The potential's there, and that's why I have him at the spot.
Yeah, I too have Jimmy Wiseman as my 13th overall player on the trade value list, and it's really basic. The Pacers got him on a minimum contract and a non-guaranteed contract for a year or two. So this to me kind of tells you he's almost in the same boat as a Kendall Brown contract-wise. Now, I don't think that it's the same level of player, but when it comes to James Wiseman, like you said, he's going to try to recoup that value. We'll see what happens with him. But right now, nobody wanted him, and he's been on two teams already on the first 4 years of his rookie deal. So unfortunately, for the second overall pick in the 2020 NBA draft, his value has plummeted. So he's got a long way to go, but I guess we can say the only way up, the only way up for him is up. He can't really go down. So, James Wiseman, number 13, number 12, Facci. This is where I think really everything gets interesting. So let's talk about number 12.
Yeah, I really do. And this guy had a solid year last year for his standards, but there's some things that are a little bit, that could sway it. And that's Isaiah Jackson. Look, Isaiah took a solid leap last year. I loved what I saw from him, but he didn't really grow offensively, and I'm not sure if he will. He is also entering restricted free agency after the year, and that's why whoever trades for him is then in line to pay him. So I think at that point, that's why I have him at number 12 on the list.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you because the thing for me with Isaiah Jackson, and I know we're agreeing a lot here early on, but with Isaiah Jackson, what is his ceiling? Can he ever evolve into more than what he is already? I don't feel like there's a lot of teams around the league that are just like dying to get him. I think if he was included in a trade package, like someone might be excited about what he could potentially do, but he kind of gives me a lot of Precious Achua vibes. And right now we're looking at Precious Achua can't even get a contract.
True.
So I don't know what is going to happen because of the new CBA and the different aprons with some of these key free agents that are still out there, like Markel Fultz. Can't even find a team to latch onto. So,
Tyus Jones.
yeah, Tyus Jones. I think people have said that there might be somebody in the works to get him, but
We've heard it for a while. A couple weeks it seemed like he could be signed and traded. I don't know. There's really not a lot of money going around, so we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're recording this Thursday night, and we did just hear earlier this afternoon about the Chris Dunn sign and trade with Russell Westbrook. But I probably had remembered 2 weeks ago, Woj talked about Westbrook would be leaving the Clippers and joining the Nuggets, and it took 2 weeks to come to fruition. So, wouldn't surprise me if that's the same thing here with Tyus Jones for a team trying to bring him on. But regardless, I just think with Jackson, he's one of those players that he's a good backup player, but how much value do centers have in the league right now? Especially guys that are backup centers and guys that can't shoot. I do think the good thing about Jackson, though, we kind of saw like the Daniel Gafford role, and I think he could maybe become that. I just think he's a lesser version of that right now for sure. So he's got to work his way up, but lost his spot last year as a backup center, and I think he just has to continue fighting because they bring in James Wiseman, who we have below him, but there's a case that James Wiseman could push him if he doesn't play well. So just going to put that out there.
There really is, and I think the fact that when you're starting to tip the scale of like, hey, both players were somewhat on the same level, but James Wiseman has that minimum second year on that deal, and Isaiah Jackson's looking for that first payday. That could be enough for the Pacers to say, well, let's see if someone sends him an offer, and take it from there. But I think for Isaiah Jackson, when you look at could he grow, could he take on more responsibilities? I think we're both in agreement that we likely don't see him as a starting center in the NBA. So it feels like his ceiling is as a backup big. A team like the Knicks, I'm sure that they could have interest if it's like a second round pick, something of that sort. Doesn't really move the needle for Indiana. You want him as a backup big this year. So that's why we both are in agreement that we have him at that 12th spot. Next on my list, I mean, hey, we keep saying it. This is where things get interesting. Maybe it's more of a prisoner of the moment because his summer league play wasn't that great. But I got Ben Shepherd over here at 11.
Whoa.
Yeah, maybe. And this could come as a surprise. Here's the thing. I look at Shepherd, good 3-and-D player, didn't shoot the three ball well last year. I think he will this year. Didn't impress in summer league, which is why I want to state that it's probably a prisoner of the moment type of situation where I expected a little bit more, but he is still on that cheap rookie deal with team control. So teams would be interested if he was included, but I don't think that anyone's going to say, let me call up Indiana for Ben Shepherd right now. I just don't think that that's going to be happening.
One, this is just disrespectful.
Could be.
Two, you do realize he had the best plus minus of any Pacer in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, I do. It's good. Could he do it again? I don't know. I've even heard you say he could be a guy that could fall out of the rotation this year, and that is possible too.
But there's a guy that's on the team that won't be in the rotation, and I don't care how good of a summer league he's having. It's Johnny Furphy. Johnny Furphy is an unproven player in the league where Ben Shepherd has proven himself that he can actually start in an Eastern Conference Finals game and not be a negative. So I think that there's more proof in the pudding when it comes to Ben Shepherd's overall game. With Johnny Furphy, love what you're seeing in Summer League. Maybe he does have a higher ceiling than a Ben Shepherd. I don't know. It's way too early to tell. And I like what I've seen so far in Summer League, but that's it. How many guys have we liked in Summer League and then they don't play that great in the NBA? I feel like with him right now, he's not going to really be in the rotation. So it's not going to get his value any higher. And the fact that he already fell to 35 in the draft kind of shows you like, hey, teams really weren't willing to take him. So I don't think his value is maybe as high as we might hope or think. So that's why I have Johnny Furphy at 11. You have Ben Shepherd. I'm not going to act like I have Shepherd that much higher, but I do think that Shepherd, because he's on that rookie contract, makes him more interesting in terms of trade value and what you might want back, because that's a very cheap buy for a very quality player.
Yep. I knew this was going to be the one where people are like, oh, are you kidding me? But it's just like, I think I'm speaking with my heart right now, and I just believe in Johnny Furphy more long term. And I know that could be wrong for the exercise, but I just feel that look at the money that it took for the Pacers to have to trade up one spot. I think that money that it took is actually more than what Ben Shepherd's even making this year. So it shows that this is someone that I believe there was other teams that were probably also calling about moving up to 35 to probably draft. We might not know that for sure, but I do think longer term, Johnny Furphy is going to have more value in this league. Right now, Ben Shepherd is definitely more proven in this league. Also, is about 3 to 4 years older. So, let's give Furphy some time.
That's your argument right there, the age. But this is a talking about it right now and not talking about it in a couple of years. So if you're looking at it futuristically, then sure, maybe you can make that case. But we can't predict the future, Facci. Now, you said this, that what the Pacers traded up in terms of cash consideration money with the Spurs to get Johnny Furphy, you said that was, less than what, or more than what Ben Shepherd's making this year. If you combine Ben Shepherd's contract and Johnny Furphy's contract, it is still less than what the Pacers gave up to move up one spot to secure Johnny Furphy at 35. I don't have a problem with it. I think it was a great move by the Pacers. They identified a player they wanted, but I still don't think his trade value is that high right now.
Yep. Now, look, I could agree that I'm definitely talking with my heart, because I don't think a team's going to call up and say, we need to get Johnny Furphy on our roster right now.
That's the guy, man.
This will be. I'm falling in love. I am falling in love a little bit. Here's the thing. I fully expect Johnny Furphy to be in the G League. He should be in the G League. Ben Shepherd will be on the Pacers. He could be at times, who knows, whether it's, I don't know, closing games or playing pivotal minutes or whatever it is. Anything is on the table for Ben Shepherd this year compared to Johnny Furphy, where it's not. But I guess I'm just, like I said, falling in love in that moment of believing in Johnny Furphy more long-term than Ben Shepherd, even if it goes against the exercise.
Facci has been Furphy'd, okay?
I have.
He's been Furphy'd, ladies and gentlemen. So that's the new thing. If you're a lover of Johnny Furphy, you've been Furphy'd, and that is what Facci is doing right now. So we gotta copyright that saying there, Facci.
I'd have to.
You've been Furphy'd. All right, number 10. Where are we going next?
Number 10 on my list is Obi Toppin.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing. 4 years, $60 million contract. I think that's good value for Obi's production. I really do. Some teams could look at it as, hey, are you going to take on $60 million in salary if you were to make a trade right now? It's not enough to say, whoa, we can't do that. But I do think that he still does have some limitations. I think his salary is perfect to be included in any deal or to be able to facilitate a deal. I think that probably will happen one day. But if you're Indiana, I still look around. I've said it like a broken record. Alex, has there been one restricted free agent that a team has sent an offer sheet to that was not their own this offseason? I don't know if there has been.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. And which is why I say Indiana could have waited. They could have waited. Could you have rubbed Obi wrong? Definitely. You could have. Could you have probably signed him closer to maybe the $10 to $12 million mark? I probably do believe so on that. I think they overpaid. I think it's not a bad move. You shored up your bench, your top scorer off the bench, depending on what the deal is at Mathurin or not. It's a smart move. But I do think that given there was no activity in sending out offer sheets to opposing teams' players, I thought Indiana could have waited.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, it's really weird. If you think about free agency this weird, it's had a very weird feel to it. I know people have said, oh, there's been a lot of big moves, and maybe there has been, and it's been kind of spread out because of the new CBA allowing players to re-sign once the finals are over and not waiting till June 30th to announce everything, or July 1st, whatever that date is. But yeah, I think Obi Toppin is an interesting player, and I too have him at number 10. And I think part of the reason why I had him at this spot is because I just kind of wonder what his value is across the league because it only took 2 pretty meh second round picks for Indiana to get him away from New York. He wasn't able to be a starter. He comes off the bench and just really found a spot that worked out well for him. And I really enjoyed what he did off the bench, but at the same time, you don't see a lot of teams trading for backup power forwards. And I do believe that he's more of a beneficiary of this system than he is as an individual player. So to me, he might look the best version of himself with the Pacers. But if he were to get traded to somewhere like, just throwing it out there, like Philadelphia or somebody like that, that might not play as fast as Indiana, he might not look the same. So that to me is where I feel like his value is just a little bit lower than the guys I have above him. So we're in agreement there on number 10. Who do you have at number 9?
At number 9, I got TJ McConnell.
Oh,
now,
you got Furphy this high? Oh my goodness, what is happening?
No. I had okay. So then I messed up. So I had Furphy one spot above Ben Shepherd, but I thought I kind of covered it. In that situation. So I should have clarified. I do not have Johnny Furphy that high. I would have to draw the line. Look, I might be Furphy'd, but I don't have him at number 8. So I had one spot above Ben Shepherd is where I had Johnny Furphy.
Okay, so let's back this up a little bit. So at number 11, you were different. I had Furphy, you had Shepherd. At number 10, I have Obi Toppin. You have Johnny Furphy. At number 9, you have Obi Toppin, and this is where I am different. I have Ben Shepherd at number 9.
Okay. All right. Great.
So we've talked about Shepherd already. I think that his value is just a little bit higher than Obi Toppin right now because he is a wing. I think he can defensively. He's very good, so I think he can fit into a lot of teams. He's on a much cheaper contract. How much younger is he than Toppin? Is it like 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I think it's so Ben Shepherd's birthday was actually yesterday. I believe he turned I think it was 23 yesterday.
Okay.
So Obi Toppin's
26.
So it's a 3-year difference.
Okay. Gotcha. So that to me works in my favor too, just being 3 years younger than Toppin. I think it's really close. That was the hardest one for me right there, was a 9 and 10. So I've got Shepherd at 9. You have Toppin at 9. Now we're moving to number 8, and you had TJ McConnell, and I as well had TJ McConnell.
Good. I got TJ McConnell. So far, look, all it is that I got Johnny Furphy, a spot above or so. But here's the thing. For TJ McConnell, every single team could use a TJ McConnell. At nearly $9 million in salary and expiring, it's a bargain. I think he proved his value across the league. I think even the casual fan was like, yo, that TJ McConnell, he just doesn't stop. It was like you're hearing NBA players talk about TJ McConnell. I feel that his value, he's completely increased it. It's just obviously now he's an expiring contract. You'd have to give him a new contract after this. And this is McConnell's last chance at a payday. So, I don't know exactly what the Pacers would get back in return unless that team is absolutely determined to re-sign TJ McConnell.
Yeah, that's what's interesting because the expiring contract makes it very interesting what they're going to do. Will the extension happen? But TJ McConnell, you said it, he's beloved by almost everybody in the league, and everybody needs a TJ McConnell. That's why the Phoenix Suns were really after him, and I think he actually would have helped them a lot probably would have closed games for him. I mean, TJ McConnell might be one of the most underrated and underappreciated guards in the league, and I think last year we kind of saw without Halliburton, he was able to take on a bigger role, and we know that he's not the perfect point guard because if he was, he'd be a starter. But as a backup point guard, he has a case to be the best backup point guard in the league. I just kind of wonder exactly, how much value he does have as he is getting older. Is he going to be able to replicate what he did last season? I think there's a lot of question marks there, but they're all fair. But at the end of the day, come on now, got to throw a Kevin Pritchard reference in there. At the end of the day, we know TJ McConnell is a baller, and that dude is a dog. So I think having him in our top 8 is very fair and very fitting, and I think he is that in terms of the importance of this team and keeping their chemistry together. He is a top 8 player in the rotation and in terms of importance to this roster.
Quick shout out. You mentioned Kevin Pritchard. As we're recording this, it is his birthday today. Happy birthday, KP. Hope it's a great one. Thanks for doing everything you've done over the last few years, helping build this team. It's one that we're all really excited about. So shout out to KP.
Yeah, and make sure Magic Johnson knows, because I don't know if Magic Johnson realizes that Kevin Pritchard is still the one in charge. I know he gave Chad Buchanan a shout out for the Siakam trade. But yeah,
Oh, Magic.
KP didn't have anything to do with that, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. Magic's tweets are they're always interesting from time to time. But next on my list, I got Aaron Nesmith. Look, Nesmith still just 23 years old. He's under contract for 2 more seasons at about $11 million per year. It's still such an incredible bargain. He would be a great addition off the bench for any team. And when you're looking for defense, you're going to get it. When you're looking for 3-point shooting, this is a guy at one point, it might have been for a day, maybe two, was like leading the NBA in 3-point percentage, still shot, I think it was like about 42% from three last year. So he's someone that I think would make any team's bench better.
Aaron Nesmith, I have him a little higher, Facci.
Okay, all right.
The player I have just a notch below him is the longest tenured Pacer, Miles Turner. Miles Turner, I almost put him lower.
He was the trickiest to put on this list.
He's an expiring contract. He's in his prime, but you can't extend him. So that is what makes it really interesting. And I think that a lot of teams would want to extend him, but they couldn't get that done until the offseason. And so it's such a risk to bring him back. Now, you do have his bird rights, which does help if you are a tax-paying team. And you can go over keep going over the tax or going to the aprons to bring him back if that's what you wanted to do, if you really value him. But it's not saying that he's the 7th most valuable player on this roster. It just means that his trade value to me has dropped because he is more of an expiring contract than he is an asset as a player that you could have long-term if you did trade for him. So, I like Miles Turner. I think he's taken a step forward a lot the last couple of years, but at the same time, he's always going to be around a 13-7 guy. I think his defense has taken a step back, and I think that he fits this team really well with what they're trying to do, but I think there's a handful of teams he could really fit into. One team that I always think makes a lot of sense for him is the Pelicans, just because of Zion and what he does, and I think they could be a very nice pairing together. But, I don't want him to go anywhere. I think that you got to see what you have here, but that is a big question mark. I talked with Derek Schultz about that quite a bit on the last episode, what's up with Turner, and he said it's a tough decision. They got to really decide, is he the guy that you really want to pay to be the 3rd highest paid guy on your team when you're going into the tax, when you're going into the first apron? That's a very hard question to ask and really answer. So don't know if he'll take a hometown discount. I kind of threw that idea out there. Maybe he would, since he's done it before for Indiana and he really likes being here. But I just think that the Pacers they're kind of in a tough spot and they really don't have a replacement for him. So that's what makes it even more trickier. And I think he's got a lot of leverage here, Facci, but I just wonder in terms of trade value, what teams are going to be like, ooh, yes, let's go get an expiring guy that we can't extend.
I'm right there with you. I struggled where to put Turner, and I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. I have him next on my list.
Okay.
He made great points. Here's the thing. Miles Turner is better than some of the players that are above him on this list, and it feels wrong to have him this low. But you mentioned it, an expiring contract. Pacers can't negotiate with him right now, so it almost feels like they need to make their decision, in advance, because a guy like Turner, I mean, you either got to get a deal done or you can't let him walk. But the second Isaiah Hartenstein signed that contract for about $30 million, I took one of those big gulps and I went, yeah, that might be the end of Miles Turner's time in Indiana, because Turner, if you look on paper, his resume is definitely better than Isaiah Hartenstein. It just is. And for him to get near $30 million felt like the benchmark for what Miles Turner should be asking for in free agency. You look at this Pacers team now, the books are way different than what they were even a year ago. You have 2 max contracts on there. You have other guys like a Benedict Mathurin and Andrew Nembhard that are going to be due money. You still need to make a decision there. If you sign Turner, it's probably the end of Andrew Nembhard there. And I don't know what the situation will be for Mathurin. Who knows? That's a story for another day. But I just feel like centers, they're either overpaid or they're really underpaid. And there's really not that much in between. Like when you're talking about a discount, like, look, if the Pacers were to pay Turner $25 million, okay. But he probably has every right to ask for $30 million. And this is his last great chance at that big payday. And I just fear that it might not come from the Pacers, given how reluctant they are to be that second apron tax team, which I don't blame them, because They don't have that replacement for Turner. That's a very valid point. They do not. No one believes it's going to be Isaiah Jackson. Nobody believes it's going to be James Wiseman. I don't know who it'll be, but I just think for that financial figure and the penalties that come with being a second apron team, it doesn't feel good in terms of bringing Miles Turner back.
Couple things here that I want to bring up. Miles Turner is, what is he, 28 years old?
He's like
right
28.
now. 28. He'll be 29 by the end of the contract. So he's in his prime. He's never been an unrestricted free agent. So this is the first year that he'll get to really test the waters and do that. I mean, this is Paul George. We just saw his first year in unrestricted free agency, how complicated that was because he wanted to go to the Clippers. They gave him some lowball offers because they were trying to save some money. And then ultimately they were going to pay him, but because they had already done that damage of not giving him the offer that he felt he was worth, it just became, a battle between the two of the teams and the agent and the front office. And so he ends up walking away because he wouldn't get that deal with the no trade clause. So I think with Turner, it's a lot different because he's not the same level of player as a Paul George, but it's just interesting to kind of see how those dynamics are. And I think that with him entering unrestricted free agency, there could be opportunities out there for him to go somewhere else, maybe somewhere he can get an opportunity like Hartenstein did this year and feel like, oh, I'm that missing piece for this team. And I know that it would be hard for him to leave Indiana just because of what it means to him, but that's a big thing for me. And the other thing I was going to bring up was Nick Claxton for the Brooklyn Nets signed a 4-year, $100 million contract. All last season, we heard about how Nick Claxton was likely to be traded because they didn't want to bring him back. Blah, 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 blah. We heard that for multiple months, that Nick Claxton was a big trade piece. All of a sudden, they hit free agency, and boom, here he comes back with this big contract. And I don't know who they were competing against.
I have no idea who was in the Nick Claxton market. Good player, but I don't know who else was offering $25 million a year.
And I like Nick Claxton. So if he's going to get $100 million in a 4-year deal, you darn better believe that Miles Turner is going to get at least $25 million minimum or more.
Oh,
so
yeah, definitely.
that to me, like it kind of, I'm trying to gauge the market a little bit, and I keep looking at players that have gotten new contracts as centers, but it feels like teams are kind of just strapped right now. They don't really know what they can do, and it makes things really interesting.
It really does. That's why I just throwing a random figure out there. It feels like 4 years, $120 million. It's about $30 million per year. And to me, that just feels like probably what is the minimum for what Turner's going to be looking for on paper. I mean, Turner's resume is definitely better than Nick Claxton. Like Nick Claxton's good shot blocker. It's still a young player, but he's nowhere near the offensive player that Miles Turner has ever been. So it just feels that there's no scenario where I could see him getting less than Nick Claxton. And then for Brooklyn, look, they had money. No one really spent it on. You can make that argument, but it just feels like Turner's going to have some interest from other teams. He's going to want and he's going to be able to hit unrestricted free agency, just like we talked about. So that complicates things.
Let me just say one thing real quick on Nesmith because he is my number 6.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I had him above Turner is just because he's got that 3 years left on his contract. So, and I think he kind of proved himself in the playoffs that he can be a really good defender. I think he can fit a lot of teams. I don't think he just has to play the Pacer style. I think he can play multiple different styles. You probably would like to see that 3-point shot percentage go up a little bit more. It was not that great in the playoffs. He did kind of tail off after the All-Star break. I know he dealt with an injury there for a minute. So, yeah, you hated to see that. He did take a step back as a shooter that last part of the season. But if you just heard him talk on this podcast last month and how excited he is about running it back, keeping this core together, he's not going to get traded, but I do just think that he has a very tradable contract, and I don't think anybody's going to be losing sleep if they have an Aaron Nesmith on the roster at $11 million a year for the next 3 years. I mean, it is an absolute steal, and just think about how cheap that contract is going to be in the year 3 of that deal when the salary continues to rise. So I just think that makes him so attractive as a contract.
I'm looking at it right now. In year 3, it's going to be 6.4% of the cap. Like, I mean, that's going to be an incredible contract for any team. And like I said,
what is it right now? What is the percentage right now? I'm just curious.
The percentage right now is 7.8. So it's still so small.
Okay.
But $11 million is just such a steal in today's NBA when guys are getting big time money out there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think for the amount of years that are on his contract at the dollar amount that it is, that's appealing to every single team. And I think that that's why he would have more trade value. Look, are the Pacers going to get 2 first-round picks for Aaron Nesmith? No, they're not. But they would have a lot of suitors that would be interested.
For sure. All right, let's move into our top 5 now. This is where we obviously have the same top 5. It's just, what is the order of this 5? Facci, hit me. Number 5. Who we going with?
Is this guy could be a spot higher for you? I really don't know. Maybe it's what happened in the moment, but I'm going Jarris Walker. Look,
Number 5 too for the Pacers.
yes, exactly. Look, he could have, he could have been a spot higher. Definitely, you could make that argument. I just think that I was a little bit discouraged with what I saw in Summer League. And I know on the flip side, I was overly encouraged with what I saw from Johnny Furphy in Summer League. And the thing is that this is Jarris Walker, who I felt like every time stepped on the court in Summer League should have been the best player on the court for the most part. And he's still under control for the next few years. Contract is cheap. It's about $6.3 million. He's super affordable. He's so young. He's 20 years old that I feel like if he went to any team right now, he would make an impact. He would just need that opportunity. But I do definitely see that he's got some limitations or some growth ahead of him. And for right now, there's a lot of good young talent in this league. I think that he would have the trade value, but he would need to be included with something else for a team to really pay up for him.
Yeah, he was a lottery pick last year for a reason. I mean, he's a very good player. I think a lot of teams like what he's got potential to do. We just haven't really seen him put it all together yet. I think, in the Summer League, he was playing the 2 for the last 2 games,
Interesting
playing
stuff.
the 4 the 2 games before that. I talked with Derek Schultz about this too, just like they're playing him out of position, and it's very difficult for him. Seth Greenberg brought this up 2 games ago against, I forget who they were playing. I think it was the Nets. It was the Suns. It was the Suns. They were playing the Suns. Yeah. And he was just talking about how Jarris was, played for all throughout high school. And I know college with Houston. And then I know at times in high school, he did play some points. So he's kind of one of those guys that can do a little bit of everything. It's just, you want to see him fine tune all the things that he's good at and really blossom. But it just takes time for guys to develop. And without the actual on-court, experience, it's going to take some time. You can do a lot of stuff in the G League, but we've seen players like TJ Leaf go to the G League, dominate. Goga Bitadze go to the G League, dominate. Come back to the league, and they can't really do anything for those couple of first years they were in the league. Now, I will say this, Goga has carved out a nice career for himself in Orlando. Really proud of him and happy for him. Yep. But TJ Leaf's out of the league for a reason. Jarris Walker is not TJ Leaf, but it just takes guys time to develop. I'm right there with you. I think there's a team that could be really intrigued by Jarris and his potential, and I think that it's still untapped. He's 20 years old. He's got plenty of time to grow, so giving up on him right now would be really stupid, but I do think that he has a ton of value in the league, and there might be teams that are higher than we are on Walker based on this roster in terms of our trade value list, but I think he's got to be right there at 5. I just can't put him above any of the 4 above him. But I love his game and I love his potential. I just feel like right now we haven't seen it all yet, and I wonder if it does plummet his stock just a little bit.
That's the thing, is that this is that year where it's like, okay, year 1, you could get away with like, oh, he didn't really play that much, but like every team still believes. Like year 2, if you're really not playing that much, then it's like, okay, what do we need to know of what's going on behind the scenes or lack thereof? What's he missing? So I do think that there's a couple players, like for instance Dyson Daniels. Dyson Daniels was picked, I want to say it was either 7th or 8th by the Pelicans. Year 1 didn't play much. All right, well, whatever. Year 2 doesn't play that much either. You see him traded, and yes, he was traded in the DeJounte Murray deal, but it felt like he wasn't like a big featured piece of the deal. We'll see what happens. But I think year 2, if you still want his value to be high, you need to be playing him consistently, and that remains to be seen if he'll be getting consistent minutes. But number 4 on my list is a guy that is a little bit more proven, and that's Benedict Mathurin.
Okay.
Look, it's tough to kind of forget about just how good Mathurin was at times. Like, if you're looking for a talented scorer in this league, Mathurin can definitely be that for your team. This man can hoop. Is he a top 2 option on a team? We really don't know that yet. We can't say that he is or isn't, but I definitely think that if he's going to be one of your top options, you might not be a overly competitive team, but we'll see what happens. He is under contract for the next 2 seasons before he would be a restricted free agent. So I do think that any team that was trading for him would have his rights. They'd have him under team control. It would be great, but I think that right now there could potentially be more value around the league for Benedict Mathurin than there is on his own team, where you have so much competition at spots that he could be playing at. So that's why I got about number 4 on my list.
I never thought I'd see the day when we made a list and you had Andrew Nimhard higher than me. I'm
Okay,
surprised
let's
you
hear
don't
it.
have Benedict in your top 3 because I
Wow.
have Benedict in my top 3 because this is where I put Andrew Nimhard.
Okay,
So I'm going to talk about this for a minute because
do it.
you're right. With Mathurin, it's still a little bit of an unproven type of thing still because we didn't see him in the playoffs. I will say, though, top 6 pick in a draft that went down 2 years ago proved that he could be a good player in the league. I think he would have closed a handful of games with the Pacers in the playoffs because of his scoring abilities. And his ceiling is still higher than Andrew Nimhard. As much as I love Andrew Nimhard, his ceiling is still higher. For me with Nimhard, I think him getting to 4 is pretty good. Now, I've talked to a handful of people recently, and they like Nimhard, but they're not sure if they see the star potential. And they kind of feel like he can get better than what he is now, for sure. But, like, is he does he have what it takes to be a star in the league? So I'm kind of curious. I do think with Mathurin's ceiling being higher, that means his trade value is higher across the league. He's younger as well. But Nimhard could be a starting point guard on a handful of teams. So I have Nimhard at 4. I think that part of the reason why his trade value is just a little bit lower to me is the contract because he's going to want an extension. And if he doesn't get that extension, he could get restricted free agency. And then you're really going to have to compete with other teams for him. There's less team control potentially with him than there is a Mathurin. And I think that Mathurin at his best can outplay, outreach potential wise Andrew Nimhard. But right now, I think they're pretty close. I'd give the edge to Nimhard right now because of the defensive side of things. But I do think that Benedict can get better. And I think teams believe probably more in Mathurin than Nimhard. I could be wrong, but that's how I think people feel about him.
It's very possible, and I think that there's a certain portion of Pacer fans and probably around the league that are forgetting about Mathurin, sleeping on him a little bit. It's been a while. We saw
Wake
this.
up, ESPN.
We saw this team have success without Mathurin, but he could easily come back with a vengeance and have a really good year. Where all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, how did I have him 4th on the Pacers on my own list? But that remains to be seen. This is the year where the Pacers kind of need to make that decision as to like what are you going to do before you commit a lot of money to a guy that you're still wondering if he's ever going to be that two-way player that either you or he hopes and dreams that he could be. So
Yeah.
that's why I had him at number 4, and then maybe that's why things get a little bit crazy over here. Because what if I told you the number 3 on my list isn't Andrew Nemhard? What if I told you it's Pascal Siakam? And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Here's the thing. The former 2-time All-NBA member was worth every single pick and player that the Pacers traded for him last season when he was an expiring contract. He made a major impact for the Pacers. There's no way the Pacers get to the conference finals without him. But by theory, you could say, hey, he's under contract for 4 years. That means, hey, any team would have control. He's not going to walk. But then you could also say on the flip side, $190 million over the next 4 years is a lot of money at age 30. What is he going to be like in that final year, making about $52 million per year with the way that teams are already getting a little bit scared about that second apron and those future picks that could be frozen or moved to the end of the first round, things like that. That's why I think in this situation, the contract could help or even hurt him. That's why I have him at number 3.
I almost asked you before I brought up Nimhard last number 4 is would it be crazy to put Pascal behind Tyrese, Benedict, and Nimhard? And as I was thinking about that question, I said, Alex, that is such a dumb question. How can you put Pascal Siakam behind any of those guys I know that he's older, and I was thinking about the age thing myself when I was bringing up that discussion. So I'm not calling you dumb, but I'm just saying with myself, I was arguing because I'm thinking to myself, Pascal Siakam is a top 30, 35 player in the NBA. What team that is trying to win basketball games would not want Pascal Siakam on their team? I don't think there's a lot of teams that would say, nah, we don't want to trade for him if he's available. I think that the contract, like you said, does make it interesting. It does have to be the right fit. There's probably teams that already have that position filled, so they would say, we don't want him. But for teams that are looking for a power forward, are you kidding me? If Pascal Siakam became available and he's on a deal for like this for 4 years, yeah, it's a max, but it wasn't the full max that he could have got. He took the same max that any other team could have gave him, which is 190 million or right around there. So I'm just gonna throw it out there. I think Pascal Siakam is a great player, and he might not be the guy that can carry your team as the guy to a championship. But if you look at what he's making compared to some other guys in the league, it feels like it's pretty fair to if you put it on a scale like that. I know it's a max deal, but look at some of these other super max contracts that are going out. Don't think he's that level of player, but very, very good. For me at number 3, this is where I have Benedict Mathurin. We talked about Mathurin a lot. Don't really need to go into too much more, but the Pascal Siakam situation is very interesting. I have Pascal at number 2. I know that you will probably have Nembhard at number 2, but I don't want to steal your thunder because you might have number 1. Knowing how crazy you've been this episode, it's very unpredictable. So you might have him a little bit higher than Tyrese.
I'm going to be honest. There's a chance I have Johnny Furphy again at number 2. No, look, here's the thing.
Furphy,
you know, going back to Siakam, it's not just the money you'd be taking on. It's what are you trading for him? Now all of a sudden you're in deep. So that's part of the reason I factored in is Indiana's not just going to give him away. You know, it would take quite a lot. So I think that it's a hefty situation to take on for any team. But number 2 on my list is Andrew Nembhard.
Okay,
look, and here's the thing. Once again, this could be the recency bias, but we saw him coming off of his best play. We saw, you could make an argument, and I would like to one day take a look at these contracts. There's a real argument that can be made that Andrew Nembhard has the best contract in the NBA right now. Each of the next 2 seasons is about $2 million. 2. That is, you don't even want to put that into, that's like 1/20th of or whatever of what Ben Simmons is making. Hey, I'm not a great math guy, but look, that's the thing. It's Simmons is making $40 million plus. Andrew Nembhard's at 2. So you look at guys like Zach LaVine who can't get traded for anything. You look at Andrew Nembhard at 2. So the fact that he's making less money than Kendall Brown is actually pretty wild. But anyway, he's proved that he could play the 1. He could play the 2. He could play both sides of the ball very well. I think the best basketball is definitely ahead of him. I think that you said it earlier, so it ain't just my words. He could be a starting point guard on quite a few teams.
Oh, for sure.
There are some teams in the NBA right now that look like they're just trying to get by for the year and then see who might be available next year. Andrew Nembhard is a player that could very well suit up at the point spot for a few teams. But look, if he ends up hitting restricted free agency, he's going to have a ton of suitors. Yeah. The real question is, can Indiana get something done before that happens? And even if he signs that contract that could be around that $17-18 million mark, starting out, that's still a great deal for whatever team is going to get him, because that is now, in some scenarios, half of what some starting point guards are getting in this league.
I'm a big fan of Nembhard. I can't disagree with anything you're saying about him. I think very, very special player. I think that me and you might be a little higher on him just because we watch him every single game.
Yep.
And we've seen kind of we've seen him evolve as a player. But I think we're also a little bit of a prisoner of the moment too, because we did just see what he did without Tyrese in games 3 and games 4 at home. But if you go back and see what he did in the Knicks series, yes, he had the big game winner against the Knicks in game 3, but there was also some games where he didn't play very well. Couldn't defend Jalen Brunson at all. Yes. And sure. I want to make sure that I'm not being too far one way and not being fair. But at the same time, he's in my top 4. I don't have a problem with him at number 2. I think it's a little bit crazy to have him ahead of Pascal Siakam in terms of trade value, but I understand the contract, so it's not completely out of the realm of possibilities. But I do think that there would be a handful of teams that would want him. I just don't know what the point guard market is right now either. We just talked about Tyus Jones and Markelle Fultz and all those guys that are still on the market. What does that mean for players like Andrew Nembhard? I think Nembhard's clearly better than those guys. Don't get me wrong, but it is just make it interesting because how much are you willing to pay? How much is he going to get? And what is the salary spike going to look like? What teams are going to have money? That all makes a lot of sense. But right now, it wouldn't take much to get him. And I think if a team really wanted him, they could offer a very, very nice draft pick to Indiana. And I don't know if Indiana would say yes because you can't replace what he does on the court with a draft pick. But that could be a very, very interesting chip later in the trade if they wanted to do that.
No, I mean, it really could. I mean, you look at a team like the Washington Wizards that does not have their answer at point guard. Any one of their picks, even if it's from a couple years from now and it's potentially unprotected or barely even protected, that becomes extremely appealing. So there's quite a few teams out there that'll need his services. But if Indiana is going to make him available, it better be because they know they're not coming to an agreement with him on a contract, and they are trying to get ahead of it. But there shouldn't be much surprise for your next person next on your list. So let's just hear it. Who do you got?
Yeah, and we got the same person. Number 1, Daniel Tice.
Yeah.
He's coming back, baby. Daniel
Yep.
Tice. He's going to be brought back. We're going to trade for him. He's on the Pelicans. No, I'm kidding. Tyrese Halliburton, ladies and gentlemen. The point guard. The guy with Team USA right now. And for some reason, Steve Kerr is like, hey, Derek White, we're going to give you Tyrese's minutes here. What are we doing? Tyrese Halliburton's best point guard on Team USA by a long shot. Tyrese Halliburton is a great player. He's an all-star starter. Freaking all-star starter for the Eastern Conference. This dude was ranked by some of his own peers as the best point guard in the NBA. So,
Star.
yeah, you can overlook. I mean, everybody knows who number 1 is on this list, but you can't overlook how amazing and how important this man is to this franchise, what his value is across the league. I don't care if you had a point guard on your roster already. Every team would want Tyrese Halliburton.
100% every team should want him. And here's the thing. I don't ever want to see the day. I do not. But could you even imagine what it would take to trade for Tyrese Halliburton when he's got 5 years on his contract, and you could even make the argument that he's not in his prime yet? That's the thing that's crazy. When you're seeing some of these trades go around, Mikal Bridges getting traded for a ton of first-round picks, things like that. What has Mikal Bridges done in the NBA? I mean, look, good player, but it's like Tyrese Halliburton, like I said, you can make that argument that he's the best point guard in the East, maybe the best point guard in the NBA, whatever it is, all the accolades that you talked about. This man is the real deal, and at age 23, I still think that he has not reached his prime. The fact that you wouldn't need to give him a new contract, he's under contract for 5 more years. I truly could not imagine how many picks and young talent it would take to be able to pull off this trade for any team, because I don't want to get to that point where I even spell it out as to what it is. I don't even want to think about it, but it just shows that this man's value is through the roof, and he deserves to be, if there was a spot above 1, that's where you'd put him.
Okay, I'm going to do a quick exercise with you.
You got.
I'm going to name a player, and I want you to tell
man.
me if you'd rather have him or Tyrese Halliburton.
I think you did this last year, and you're like Jokic, and I think I said Halliburton. It was like, what? You're not taking Jokic? And I was like, look, man, like he's a great player, but I just love Halliburton.
Let's just go through the Eastern Conference. We'll keep it simple. Jason Tatum.
Yeah, I keep it simple. I mean, that's a really hard one. I mean, Tatum. I mean, look at his
$70 million freaking dollars, though.
Yeah, I know. Man, I don't know. There's probably a lot of people that would be like, you got to take Tatum. Like this is he's the position that makes everything go. So I mean, Tatum's. I don't want to. Yeah.
Okay, Jaylen Brown.
No, I'm taking that Tyrese Halliburton. I don't care if Jaylen Brown won Finals MVP. If the man can't consistently dribble with his left hand, he's not on Team USA. It's no.
Okay. Let's see. Milwaukee. Giannis Antetokounmpo.
I mean, Giannis is Giannis. Like,
how old is Giannis though?
He's older, but I mean, what is Giannis, like 27, maybe something like that?
28.
Yeah, 27, 28. I mean, Giannis is a guy that could honestly change absolutely everything. So he's actually 29, turning 30.
Ooh, old
year.
man.
Are we getting old? It's like I remember when Giannis was really young coming into the league. Has it been that long?
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, that's actually really tough now because now you think about that's a whole nother contract for
Yeah.
Tyrese Halliburton.
Give me
Eesh.
Tyrese.
Give me Tyrese, I guess. Yeah, at this point, yeah.
Just for
That's
the
a good pick.
contract reasons, the longevity. That's the
Exactly.
reason why you do that.
Yes.
So I'm not even going to ask about Dame then because that's pretty obvious.
That's not even in debate. Get him
Okay,
out
this
of it.
is going to be interesting. Tyrese Halliburton or Jalen Brunson?
No, I'm going Tyrese Halliburton.
Okay.
Jalen Brunson is a really good scorer, like that he is, but Tyrese made everybody on this roster better.
Tyrese Halliburton or Joel Embiid?
No, I'm going Tyrese Halliburton. Joel Embiid is a beast. That man cannot stay healthy. And centers, this is in the 90s, a center could win you a championship. That ain't the case anymore.
You can't even get out of the second round.
Yeah, I mean exactly. It's just, I mean they got this man all the help in the world this year. So we'll see what happens in Philly, but I still don't think they get to a conference finals.
Okay, Tyrese Halliburton or Paolo Banchero?
I think I'm still going to go Tyrese, but Paulo can very well end up one of the faces of the league.
Okay. Let's do a couple more here. I won't take this too much longer, but I just want to kind of get your pulse on things. Tyrese Halliburton or Donovan Mitchell?
I'm going Tyrese Halliburton. Donovan Mitchell to me is like he's a good player, but like I don't know, is he really moving the needles for teams? Look at Cleveland. You made that trade for Donovan Mitchell. What happened in the playoffs? I mean, they've been getting bounced. I think that Donovan Mitchell is a good player, but he's not a 1A. He's
Okay.
not.
Jimmy Butler or Tyrese Halliburton?
At this point, I'm going Tyrese Halliburton. Jimmy Butler had a really good career. It's not over by any means, but I think prime Jimmy, I think, was a couple of years ago compared to right now.
Okay, Tyrese or Bam Adebayo?
I'm going Tyrese Halliburton. Bam Adebayo is a really, really good defensive big in this league. He definitely is, but he's not going to elevate your roster the way that Tyrese has elevated the Pacers.
Tyrese Halliburton or Scotty Barnes?
I'm going Tyrese Halliburton. Scotty Barnes is a good player, but I don't know if I mean look, we can't call Tyrese a winner in the NBA yet, but like Scotty Barnes, there's just something I don't know. There's something he's like missing. I feel like.
I love that I'm asking you about all these random players. You give me these long, in-depth analysis. You just be like, Tyrese, move on.
Yeah, the only one was like when you brought up Dame, I was like, I'm not even entertaining that. The one guy that I really do think that outside of Tatum, because Tatum I think is like, okay, you can't pass up Jason Tatum. Anthony Edwards is probably going to be the
But we're
star.
talking East. We're talking East.
Okay, all right. If we're just going East, then all right.
One player that I was kind of intrigued by, and I know this is way too early now to make this comparison, but what about Brandon Miller?
Long term, I don't know, but like, man, it's just as the face of your franchise, I just feel like Tyrese Halliburton is everything that you want in the face of your franchise. Sounds like he's gonna be able to recruit. He's making everyone better. Brandon Miller to me feels a little bit more. Maybe it's just him being young. Like he wants to get his numbers. That Tyrese wants to actually get others theirs.
Yeah. Okay. Last one. This is the toughest one I'm going to ask you. Tyrese Halliburton or Alex Sarr?
I don't even know what Sarr is ever going to end up being, but it's like if
He
I could
changed his number already after going 0 for 17. He's like, I got to change his jersey number.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I'm really not confident in many players in this draft, but give me Tyrese Halliburton 10 out of 10 times.
Okay, so Anthony Edwards, I do agree with you though, as one of the
Yeah.
comparable players. Luka Doncic is definitely someone that you'd
Jason
probably take
Tatum.
over Tyrese Halliburton. But it's tough. I mean, there's a lot of good players out there, like your Kevin Durant, your Steph Curry, your LeBron James. Those all are guys that are older. Giannis is getting into that territory. I wouldn't say that he's old or by any stretch of the means. I think Anthony Davis is in that same boat as Giannis. Like Anthony Davis, when he's healthy, is freaking awesome. But
He is.
got to stay healthy, and he's getting older. So anyway, fun exercise to kind of see where you feel about Tyrese Halliburton overall, just to get away from the trade value, since that was a little bit of an anticlimactic finish there. So had to kind of bring it out there with, would you rather have Tyrese or this guy? So maybe we'll do that with more players as we move on throughout the year and say, would you rather have Pascal Siakam or X
I
player?
think that'd be fun for some other players where it could be far more of a debate. Where I just feel like, hey, we're blessed with Tyrese that, while the overall NBA might rank him as like a top 15 player, I think when you look at moving forward, where would you rank him? You could make that argument where it's closer to top 5 than it is for top 15.
Oh, for top 5 players, yeah, I think right now for me, my top 5 players, Luka Doncic. I think Anthony Edwards is in that boat. I definitely think that Jokic is still in that boat. When Joel Embiid's healthy, he can be a top 5 guy. And then I'd say probably the 5th guy for me has to be probably Bronny James.
Yeah. I mean, geez, I'm just so happy that died down when Pacer fans were like, why don't you just take Bronny? It's like, look, who knows what happens with Enrique Freeman, but Enrique Freeman showed me something in Summer League compared to what I've seen from Bronny James. I get it. There's a couple years difference. Enrique's got a lot more experience, but it's just like, guys, come on. I think everybody lets the media get to them a little bit more, and they probably thought Bronny might be a little bit better than he is, but I really don't know about that.
Enrique Freeman earned that spot. Bronny James was given that spot.
Yes.
Say what you want about Bronny James. You can say he can be, like JJ Redick said, the next Lou Dort. All I'm going to say is that if it was a guy named, Joe Smith, he's not getting drafted. He's not getting a standard contract. He's not going to be on the standard 50-man roster. There is privilege with being LeBron James' son. There's nothing wrong with saying that, but don't deny it. That's what's annoying. LeBron James and the Lakers are probably the worst liars I've ever seen when it comes to sports media talk. LeBron James lies for no reason, so he's a habitual liar. It's easy for him to lie because all he does. I don't even know when he tells the truth. So only Paul Pierce does that. So anyway, a lot of one-liners here, a lot of humdingers here to end this show. But Facci, people know where to find us at. Hit us up on social. Let us know what you guys think of the episode. But Facci, if you're excited that the Pacers have that franchise guy and Tyrese Halliburton, then it was those 3 words.
Let's go Pacers!